One Shot, One Life is presented by Lincoln Coin and Bullion, buying and selling gold, silver, platinum, and palladium bars and coins, and rare and collectible coins. We also buy gold scrap and sterling flatware. If you wish to buy or sell any of these items, please call 402-327-2853 for an appointment. Welcome to One Shot, One Life, helping you win with money, people, faith, work, health, and your hopes and dreams. We help you stop worrying and start winning.
I will not waste my life watching the world go by. I've only got one shot, one life.
And now, welcome your host, best-selling author, speaker, CEO, husband, and dad, Doug Fitzgerald, on 1499.3 KLIN.
Well, welcome to One Shot, One Life. I'm your host, Doug Fitzgerald, joined by my incredible team of producers and guests here in the studio today in Lincoln, Nebraska. Smack dab in the middle of the heartland of the United States, KLIN Studios. We appreciate you being here. And we're also broadcasting live on Facebook as well. So thank you for joining in if you're watching on Facebook. Johnny Cadillac is producing the show over there. And if you have a question or a comment during the show today, simply put it in the comment section, and Johnny will slide that over to us, and we'll make sure to not only read that, but maybe, hey, put you on the air as well. So, And then obviously, next to my side right up here, my executive producer, Josh Floyd. Josh, thank you for taking care of us.
Love to be here.
You're the man.
The sun's shining today. It's a big day.
It's a great day. We got a great show lined up as well.
Yes, we
and
do.
I'm excited, and you're welcome, as always, to ask questions. If you got a thought throughout the show, do that as well. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about something that's happening right now. During this month of March, we got March Madness going on. We got all kinds of basketball games, from women's basketball college, men's basketball in college. We just got all kinds of games. Along with that is probably one of the top times of the year for betting to happen, right? All kinds of betting, record numbers. According to the American Gaming Association, 68 million Americans are going to wager on games this year. That's up from 45 million just last year. So that's a huge increase. Josh, here's the question. How much do you think that they're projecting that's going to be bet on all of these games this year?
Man.
Just guess an amount. What do you think?
$200 million.
$200 million. Well, would you be surprised at $15.5 billion during this time? People being bet.
I backed it down from $500 million. I was going to say $500 million.
Over $15 billion. And here's the thing. Unfortunately, while this has become so prevalent in our society, along with it comes this devastating problem for a lot of people. Approximately 2 million people have severe problem gambling. Another 4 to 6 million people have a mild or moderate problem with gambling. And so it's becoming more and more of an issue. And we're going to dig into that today. The thing that blew me away stat-wise is over 750,000 young people, ages 14 to 21, have a gambling problem that they're struggling with. So this isn't just like for adults. We're talking, this is impacting kids we're going to learn about today from 9 years old on up. And it's really infiltrating. So we've got a great guest today. We're honored to have Mike Chandra in the studio. He's going to share his story about how his life was nearly destroyed because of gambling and what he's doing now to help those who are struggling with this problem. Mike is currently the Education and Outreach Coordinator at Choices Treatment Center here in Lincoln. And in a few minutes, he's going to bring us some amazing awareness to the problem gambling issue and what we can do about it if you're struggling or if you have a loved one who is struggling as well. So I'm really excited to have Mike in, and we appreciate him being vulnerable enough to just be real and share with us we want to know the truth so that we can help as many people as possible. I believe the show is going to do that.
Absolutely.
Well, 2 weeks ago, we had a very special show, especially to me, because I have my son Dylan in along with one of his best friends, Jordan Peters. About 2 years ago, Dylan had a dream of establishing and creating a podcast. And ever since then, it's continued to grow. It's continued to develop. He's now partnering with another larger podcast and marketing group. And their interviews, their social media reels, all this stuff is getting hundreds of thousands of views right now. And what we did was we had Dylan and Jordan come in, not just to share about their podcast, which we did, but we also had them share about how do you create a podcast? How do you get a message out in the podcast world, maybe on YouTube, maybe on Instagram, whatever it might be. How do you get that message out in a successful way? So they really gave us some really good information, step-by-step tips to take if you want to develop a podcast or a message or create a show. So we encourage you to check out the podcast if you didn't hear it live, so that you can learn more about that. Josh, how can people find our podcast?
We recommend Apple Podcasts or Spotify for podcasts. Both of them are free apps. If you have an Apple device, chances are you probably already got the Apple Podcast app. Once you have the app, just search One Shot, all one word, One Life, all one word, and you'll find all of our previous shows. As soon as our new shows are done, basically today at noon when this show wraps up, I'm going to get to work putting it out, so it's out into the podcastosphere right as soon as we're done here. And you can download those podcasts. You can listen to them anywhere. You can subscribe, so you never miss one. They'll download automatically to your phone. You can listen to them on the go, whenever, wherever.
Did you just say podcastosphere?
Did I?
That was awesome.
Podcastosphere?
I love that.
It just kind of came out. I just made it up.
I love that. And here's the thing about that. I got an email this week, and I can't remember the name, but there's a new podcast website. And they just sent me a quick email and said, hey, we're covering your show. We're carrying it as well, so you can get out the link. And it's a whole new pod. So I'll have to get that to you, so you can kind of share that with people.
Piece of the podcastosphere.
I know. Podcastosphere. It's going to be good.
I'll get on the horn with my lawyers right after this and trademark that.
There you go.
He takes it.
Well, hey, as I help coach people across the country, Josh, and they're working on pursuing their passions and their dreams, many times my clients will find that their purpose in life that they want to pursue is found through identifying a painful event in their past and then using that to help other people who are struggling or have struggled with that problem themselves. You know, one exercise that I like to walk people through is helping them identify their purpose by revisiting their past and then seeing if there's something that's there on their heart that they want to do to help serve other people and help other people. And that's really how people, people write books. They write books usually about something that they've been impacted by in their past. If people create podcasts, whatever that passion is on their heart, and a lot of times it's because of a painful event that they have. But here's one word of caution that I think is really important. Before you jump in to do anything like that and wanting to help people, especially if you're dealing with a painful issue personally, I would just want to make sure that you take a healthy step to deal with your own personal struggles first before you jump into that area. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
But I tell you what, no better way to serve people than to walk through them together with them through things that you've already struggled with and came through on the other side. Yeah. And it's really important. There's addictions and abuse in various forms. Those are two specific topics among others where I would encourage you to seek counsel and then potential ongoing counsel as you look at turning your pain into your overall purpose as you help people. So,
because no matter what you've been through, you're not a failure,
right?
And you're still enough, and you can help other people to avoid, just like you were saying.
And you've talked about on the show about that, what you've done personally, just dealing with the issue of mental health, suicide, all that, and you're very proactive, especially on social media, about sharing that message to help people.
I try to be, because I didn't hear that a lot when I was younger. Not that. I heard anything the other way, but it wasn't, there was kind of a stigma behind reaching out for help.
Right.
And I'm very open. I take antidepressants. I'm weaning myself off because I'm doing so well, but I just talked to my therapist 2 days ago. We normally talk 45 minutes. We talked 20. I was good. Like I'm just in a good place right now. So.
And it's ongoing too. It's not like you deal with it and you're going to be dealing with this for the rest of your life. And staying connected to that and that healing process and counsel and all that is so important as you move forward.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, they get past a certain area in their life or a painful area of their life, then they kind of forget about it and they think that they can move on, and then they find out later on it kind of creeps back up to them again.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's a reason, like in Alcoholics Anonymous, if you identify as an alcoholic and you go through the 12 steps, you are never not an alcoholic.
Right.
If you've been 30 years clean, 40 years clean, you still say I'm an alcoholic.
Yep.
It's the same thing with trauma.
Yep.
I mean, if you've been through trauma, you're never going to not have gone through that trauma. So.
And I appreciate the platform that Broadcast House gives us here with this show so that we can talk about issues like this. And not just talk about them, in a 5 or 10 minute segment, but to really be able to dig in and give us permission to really help people and serve people and explore. A lot of this is about awareness, right? A lot of things that happen in people's lives or things that you don't know about that's happening in other people's lives that you may not understand. Simply awareness and educating yourself is an incredible way to have empathy, and that's what that's my desire for this show, is that we're able to get as many people, information, awareness, serve them if needed to be served, or help serve us serve people, which is what I love to do too. So, and I love helping people share their stories, because that's what's so amazing.
Yep.
All right, well, today we're honored to have Mike Chandra joining us. After the break, Mike will be sharing his story of how his life was nearly destroyed by problem gambling and how he turned his pain into purpose by now helping those who are struggling with problem gambling themselves. It's an inspiring story. You're not going to want to miss it. If you've got a question or a comment, you can text the Rick Stein Recognition Hotline at 402-479-1400, or you can comment on our Facebook Live feed as well. You are listening to One Shot, One Life on Lincoln's #1 news and talk station, 1499.3 KLIN.
One Shot, One Life is presented by Lincoln Coin and Bullion, buying and selling precious metals such as silver, gold, platinum, and palladium. We buy and sell coins and bills, both domestic and foreign. You're listening to 1499.3 KLIN. One shot in this amazing one life, helping you make every single day count. This is One Shot, One Life on 1499.3 KLIN.
Well, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Doug Fitzgerald. We want to thank our One Shot, One Life show partners. Amazing group of people. They love what we're doing. They help us get the message out. We can't do this show without them. We want to thank Lincoln Coin and Bullion, our title sponsor. They've been my trusted gold and silver experts for over a decade. We have the Searcy team of home real estate. Love these people. Jeff, Mary, and their entire team have just done an amazing job, not only in the city of Lincoln, but with Tammy and myself as well. They've helped us buy and sell 5 of our homes in the past 30 years. Can't believe I'm saying the past 30 years. That's just kind of aging myself right there. If you want the best results in buying or selling a home, I highly recommend that you go to the Searcy team of home real estate. And then I'm excited to announce, we announced this a couple weeks ago, our brand new partner joining the show. I've Got a Name. I've Got a Name is a nonprofit organization fighting hard to end sex trafficking here in Lincoln, Nebraska, and the state of Nebraska. Every month there are 300 young girls and women who are sold for sex right here in Lincoln, and many of them are sold several times at the average age of 13. It just boils my blood. And in the state of Nebraska, approximately 900 young girls and women are sold for sex. So I've Got a Name, an incredible work that they do to help fight this. And if you want more information, go to I'veGotAname.org. If your business wants to join us and partner as well, you can just simply email me at doug@klin.com, and we will get information out to you for that. Well, March Madness is in full swing. Along with that comes sports, the opportunity for people to gamble and to take bets. It's estimated around 68 million Americans will place a wager on all basketball games going on this year. Unfortunately, while gambling has become a prevalent problem in our society, devastating effects have come from it as well. Approximately 2 million people have a severe problem gambling, and another 4 to 6 million people have mild or moderate problem gambling as well. So today we're honored to have Mike Chandra come into the studio. He's going to share his story about literally how problem gambling nearly destroyed his life and how he's now taking that message and helping people as well. So Mike, thank you so much for joining us on One Shot, One Life. So good to have you here.
It's so good to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. We literally met about a week ago, and it's just been a great conversation that we've had a couple times throughout the week. You are the current education and outreach coordinator for Choices Treatment Center here in Lincoln. And I say that because what you've done is what a lot of people want to do deep down in their heart, is take something that you've really struggled with and turn that into a passion where you can help people. So if you would you share with our listeners your story and about how gambling really devastated your life?
Well, yeah, thank you again. And that's what you said there is perfect. As far as anybody we have in treatment, the first thing we tell them is that they have to reconcile the trauma in their life. They have to eliminate that chaos and then just move ahead with a passion for serving. And fortunately enough, I've been able to do all three in my life. So starting out when I was probably about 9 years old is when my story started as far as problem gambling goes. Just playing cards with my family, and I come from a family of problem gamblers, so for us it was just something that came natural. Family reunions turned into war stories about going to the casino or wins or losses. Card games always broke out, usually after a meal with our family. I remember being in high school and winning like $250, and I'm not a young guy, this was 25, 30 years ago, winning that much money in a card game from my mom and my grandma and my other relatives. So you think about it that way, that's, at the time you don't think about things like that, and it wasn't until I got into treatment that I realized that that's not a normal way of life. When I was 14 years old, I started going to Keno parlors, placing bets illegally on my own when I was 15. Went to bingo, of all things, when I was 15, 16 years old. Look back on it now, and at the time it was kind of funny, hanging out with the grandmas and grandpas at bingo, but looking back on it now is the start of some really problematic behavior. That behavior continued through my 20s and 30s. All this whole time I was getting an education, went to school, got my bachelor's and my master's degree, had good careers, started a couple businesses, did a lot of great things in my life, had a good spiritual life. All these different things were going well in my life, even had my daughter and had a wife and everything else. But always there was this side of my life where I was essentially living a double life, where I was doing all the great things in my life, but then I had this gambling on the side, and that was impacting all of my other decisions I was making and just really held me back from being who I truly was.
What was the moment that turned things around for you?
So I never really had, most people always ask me, like, did you have that rock bottom or did you have that epiphany? I did have the epiphany, but I didn't have the rock bottom in the same way of I didn't go to jail. I didn't end up homeless. I didn't end up anything that drastic. But I would say probably 15 years ago, I knew that I needed to get help. But it wasn't until 2020 when I finally got that help. So 2020 obviously was a crazy year for everyone. Was running my own marketing business at the time, lost all of my clients because of the pandemic. So I kind of had to pivot real quick as far as my own livelihood. That allowed me to have more time on my hands. It also allowed me to fall back into the problems that I've always had in the past, and allowed me to go back to the one thing that I always knew to cope with any of my pain, and that was the gambling. So the gambling got worse and worse during 2020. I got to that point where I remember I was in Omaha, actually, the last day I bet, and went to a Keno parlor there, spent a couple $100s within like an hour, which really wasn't a big amount of money for me. The dollar amount doesn't matter at the end of the day, but I just remember leaving there that day just feeling emotionally bankrupt is the best way I can describe it. Just so exhausted, and I just knew at that point that I was done. So I pick up the phone, I called the Nebraska Problem Gambling Helpline, and from there got in touch with Deb Hammond over at Choices Treatment Center, who told me to go home and rest that day, come in the next day, start doing paperwork, and from there I've been bet free now since December 15 of 2020.
Well, congratulations on that. Let's see how. I want to learn more about how this impacted your personal life. How did it impact your relationships?
Well, I personally believe that I'm divorced because of my gambling. I don't think that we ever necessarily talked about it, even while I was a little bit while we were together, but never really we never really got to the heart of it.
Did you kind of hide it?
Oh, absolutely. I hid it.
Okay.
So, but she knew.
Yeah.
People in my life knew what was going on. I didn't have a lot of money, even though I was successful in careers. I was never really borrowed money from individuals, but I had tons of credit card debt, tons of other debt that I carried that I shouldn't have had, to be perfectly honest, if I would have been responsible with my money. I always acted like everything was okay, but yeah, I hid it. I had a job for many years where I was on the road and did a lot of traveling, so it was easy for me to hide it. Even when I had self-excluded from, and we'll talk more about that later as far as what self-exclusion looks like, but I had self-excluded from Iowa casinos. But even then, I still found ways to gamble. I found Keno parlors. I found skill touch machines. I found other states when I was traveling I would gamble in. I've then gravitated to the online stuff. So either online casinos or a lot of sports books, daily fantasy sports. I found ways to gamble any way I possibly could. So yeah, it took away, I'd say the biggest thing as far as relationships goes is that it took away that emotional energy I needed to put into those relationships. From friendships, from romantic relationships, the time with my daughter, everything I did, I took away so much time and energy that I should have put into that. And that's the things that, it's not the money that brings me any guilt or embarrassment or shame anymore. It's the thought of not being able to get that time back. So now I try to make the most of all the time I have.
It literally robbed you.
I
It
100%
stole from
say
you.
that. It did.
Yeah.
And it did nothing to do with the money.
Well, thank you for sharing that. We had talked earlier this week about how this is a silent problem. I mean, you've really laid that out. Like, this is one of those things where, I mean, if you're an alcoholic and you're drinking a lot, people can smell it, they can see your actions, they can watch you, interact. Drugs maybe the same way, but with gambling, seems like a lot easier to hide. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely. You can't fail a urinalysis on gambling.
Right.
You're not going to walk in staggering off of a gambling bender, not like you would with drugs or alcohol or anything like that. So it is easier to hide in that regard, but that's what makes it even more deadly, honestly, because the shame and embarrassment and the lies just keep adding up, and that just adds to the trauma that you're feeling. And I thought when I entered treatment that I was bipolar or had other mental health conditions because of the intense highs of wanting to gamble and while I was gambling, but then the intense lows of when I wasn't gambling or when I was chasing to try to make that money back. Chasing is when you are behind and you're trying to get your money back. So those intense highs and lows, that felt like bipolar disorder to me. And I swore to my counselors that I was bipolar. And they told me, no, just give it some time, get bet free, concentrate on that. And lo and behold, my emotions just kind of evened out after that, after time away from it. And by trying to do the right things moving forward.
Well, I saw it. I was doing some research and I saw where problem gambling can lead into other issues, though, like mental illness or depression, anxiety, obviously, right? Because you're dealing with all these things, trying to hide it while trying to live in other people's eyes a normal life, right?
Absolutely. And The scariest part of the whole thing is that 19% of problem gamblers report having committed suicide. Over 25% report having suicide ideation. So it's something that, and that's the highest. Those are the highest numbers of any addiction that is being reported.
Wow, I didn't know
currently.
that.
It's huge because of that whole silence of the addiction and that just shame and that whole, all of that just in your core of your body, and you don't have anybody to turn to, and you get to a point where you say you've mortgaged the house, say you've spent your kids' college funds, say you've spent all your life savings, your retirement. You get to a point where you're just so desperate and you have no other way to cope with your addiction that you think that leaving this world is your best option.
Did you have anybody else that was gambling with you, or were you totally alone? In other words, you know what I'm saying? Was there like a group of you guys and gals that would go out and gamble, or was it literally you isolate yourself in the process?
So there's a couple different types of gamblers. There's action gamblers and there's escape gamblers. I was a kind of a combination of both. Escape gamblers go sit in front of a slot machine and want to leave this world and leave all their troubles behind, while an action gambler is more of the type who wants to, your poker players, your sports bettors, stuff like that, who want to brag about how they can beat the system, how much smarter they are, and they like to flaunt. But I was a little bit of both in the regard that I didn't want anybody knowing what I was doing, but yet I was playing poker, I was sports betting, I was doing those things. And that's the problem today, is that with the internet, with everything we can do on our smartphones, it's becoming so much easier to do any form of betting in a mask of anonymity, and just do it all by yourself without any of that interaction. So no, I didn't want to. And most problem gamblers, just like most alcoholics or people who do drug addicts, substance abusers, they usually do it in what they feel like is secrecy, just because they want to hide that as much as possible. And yeah, when I started out, when I was younger, there would be people I would go with and stuff, but it got to a point where I didn't want anybody knowing what I was doing, and just that whole silence and that masking, that anonymity is what I craved.
Well, you have, the last couple of years, you turned your life around, and you have really been intentional about your time to help other people. As we, kind of close out this segment in hearing your story, which I'm sure is like, obviously through the stats we see, like millions of other people's stories, what is the light at the end of the tunnel here? What is the help that's available for people?
Well, starting out in the state of Nebraska, looking at it from a local standpoint, is that we have the Nebraska Gamblers Assistance Program in the state of Nebraska, which eliminates a lot of the concerns and the barriers of why people don't receive treatment, is the money aspect. Because obviously, if you're a problem gambler, you've had issues with money, because you usually don't want to receive treatment until you're out of money, and that's when you hit your quote-unquote rock bottom. So we take that out of the equation here by providing free treatment for problem gamblers and their loved ones in the state of Nebraska with a certified gambling counselor. So it's somebody who's certified in disordered gambling, who understands it, who can speak directly to the concerns that you have and your family might have. And that is absolutely free treatment in the state of Nebraska. Other states have that as well. It's done state by state. So on a national standpoint, there's no federal money going towards gambling treatment or gambling research at this point. It's all handled at a state level.
Really?
Yeah, that's something that we're trying to work on. Some of the groups that I belong to nationally are trying to work on getting a federal emphasis on it versus just being a state-by-state issue.
What would be is there like a number or a website people can go to?
Yeah, so in the state of Nebraska, I'll give you those numbers
Sure.
here first, and then I'll give you some of the national
Sure.
numbers as well. So in Nebraska, the best place to start would be calling into the Nebraska Problem Gambling Helpline. That is 1-833-BET-OVER. That is 1-833-238-6837. That's where I would recommend somebody starting out. From there, they will direct you to the counselor in your area that's best for you, the scenario. They can do remote, so it doesn't matter if you're in a rural part of the state. We can find options for you. It's 24 hours a day. It's totally anonymous, totally confidential. So, and you can call in if you're a loved one or somebody who cares about somebody else that they think might be struggling with this. We can help with any sort of issues as far as getting that person into treatment. So that's a good place to start from a state standpoint. From a national standpoint, a couple different ways to do it would be to call into the National Problem Gambling Helpline. Once again, 24 hours a day, totally anonymous, totally no issues there. Those numbers are 1-800-522-4700 or 1-800-GAMBLER.
Okay. Great information, and again, thank you for being transparent. I look forward to the rest of our conversation. Here's the thing. Stats show that over 750,000 young people ages 14 to 21 have a gambling problem that they are struggling with. And we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, Mike's going to share with us how gambling is deeply impacting our youth. You don't want to miss this one because it literally is impacting our entire society. You're listening to One Shot, One Life on the Voice of Lincoln, 1499.3 KLIN.
One Shot, One Life is presented by Lincoln Coin and Bullion, where we treat each customer with respect and dignity. A customer who purchases $50,000 of gold is not treated differently than a customer selling a gold filling. Every customer uniquely contributes to our business success. You're listening to 1499.3 KLIN. Worrying and start winning. This is One Shot, One Life on 1499.3 KLIN.
Well, we want to welcome you back to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, Doug Fitzgerald. If you want to stay up to date on what we're doing at One Shot, One Life, all you have to do is join our online email community of over 10,000 people strong. We send out an email a week. That's it. We don't do any spamming or anything like that. And we just simply keep you updated on what we're doing, the shows that we're having, the topics and everything that we're working with and dealing with, and any resources that are available as well. It's absolutely free. All you have to do is go to oneshotonelife.com, scroll to the bottom of the page, and you can be added to our email list. Every week we get people that are joining the list, so we appreciate that and look forward to building and developing a relationship with you over the years. We've been having a very important and insightful conversation with Mike Chandra about problem gambling and how it nearly destroyed his life, and now he's taking and turning that devastating experience into a personal mission to help other people. He's the outreach coordinator for Choices Treatment Center. He shared his story in the first segment that he was on. If you missed that, all you have to do is check out our podcast. You can go to One Shot, all one word, One Life, all one word on any podcast platform, and check out our episode now once it's over and any past episode as well. Well, Mike, first of all, thank you again for being transparent and just sharing with us your story. So enlightening. We were talking during the break just how, Josh and I and John just didn't realize the aspects that go into looking at the issue of problem gambling. This is impacting hundreds and thousands of our young people from, like you said, age 9 up to around 19 years old, just from our youth. How do you see this impacting our youth? Because you speak to college age and high schoolers as well about the issue of gambling.
Yes, so that's a huge piece of what I do is try to get out to high schools, try to get out to colleges, and try to educate them not only on the consequences of problem gambling, but the resources that are available if they're already down that path. And some of the stats are just unbelievable. So I just want to share a couple of those real quick. Many young people report their first gambling experience, just like mine, occurring between the ages of 9 and 11.
Wow.
Obviously, it's not legal for them to do it, but they find ways to do it. We've had clients within our center who have told me stories about their first experiences about running races and betting on races, or finding things doing brackets in school.
Right.
It's little things like that seem innocuous at the time, but are really can lead to more problems.
But that goes to because there's one of the things I struggle with, because we look at different brackets, right? And we have a bracket for everything nowadays.
Yep.
And like you said, it seems innocuous, but then you look at like bingo, right? And we have our kids play bingo, and I played bingo when I was in elementary school. I guess it maybe for some people feeds that dopamine fix, right? That excitement of wanting to win and then take it to the next level of actually winning something for winning.
Absolutely. The dopamine hits that a gambler experiences are similar to the dopamine hits of a substance abuser. And the science goes behind that and shows that. If you look at a person's brain who's gambling versus a person who's using substances, there's similarities there.
And then you have the youth whose brains are developing and getting that.
Yes.
And it's got to be more impactful, I would assume.
And here's what I like to put out there too, is that I am actually very neutral on the stance of legal gambling, is that I know that people can do it for entertainment and do it within limits and do all of that. And I don't want to take that away from people, but for the people who need the help or need to understand what the consequences are, I just want to make sure that those services are out there. So that's what a lot of what I do is going out to high schools and explaining, number one, just the odds that casinos in Vegas weren't built by people winning. They were built from people who have lost a lot of money.
And
the
they're
house
really nice.
Yes, very nice. The house always wins at long term. That's what people need to understand. So that's a lot of what I do when I go out there, and then just giving them facts and just giving the statistics of the problems out there.
What's a percentage of like these youth that really are struggling with problem gambling?
So 10 to 14% of adolescents and young adults are at risk for developing problem gambling. It's actually considered 4 times greater for anyone who started gambling at a young age. They have a 4 times greater chance of becoming problem gamblers as adults.
I remember, and I think I shared this with you earlier this week, but I remember trying to teach this lesson to my son. He was probably, I don't know, I think I want to guess around 12, 13, 14 years old. And the lottery, there was a big news article at the time because the lottery was like at the top, the most it had ever been in a pot, right, for the lottery. And so everybody was talking about it. It was on the news. People were talking about getting tickets. So I took him to the local gas station. I remember it. Go down there. I still got the ticket, by the way, on my desk. We got a ticket because I wanted to show him that there are, hundreds of thousands of people that are buying these tickets. The reality is the opportunity to win, almost nil. And trying to just get that whole point, to my son, that the house always wins. The odds are not in your favor in this, right? To take a line from a movie, the odds are not in your favor. And but I think our kids are either advertised to or promoted to that, like, this can be an opportunity for you to gain.
And that's part of the problem. So for a lot of problem gamblers in general, why they end up in the problem they have is because of a big win starting out. So they see that and they think that's something that can be replicated.
That's probably the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah, worst thing that happened to me was a big win early on too. It's like when you get those big wins, you're constantly chasing that feeling. So getting that, just starting out early on to understand that, hey, you're not always going to win. You need to set limits. Everything I talk about is within limits. So if you have to lie about what you're doing, or if you cannot hold to a limit of time, a limit of money, and you have to lie about it, those are the 3 biggest reasons that if you do any of those, then you might have a problem and you need to talk about it.
And we'll talk about that in the last segment, that and how to gamble in a healthy way, I guess, to be able to handle it that way. Back to the youth, how are they getting introduced to this? And what are some ways that they're gambling that we may not be aware of and that parents should be aware of?
Well, first of all, you can't watch a game or any sort of sports broadcast anymore without seeing ads for the sports books out there,
And they're by popular, like, athletes and
Oh, yeah.
superstars and movie stars out there promoting it.
Yeah, celebrities are promoting it. It is, I call it like, I consider where we're at with problem gambling and gambling advertising. We're 50 years behind where we were with alcohol or cigarettes. Just like the Marlboro Man was a thing 50 years ago, we have all these people promoting problem gambling in the same way now. And we've got to figure out a way to curb that advertising. I'm not against free enterprise, but we got to make sure that we're doing this responsibly.
Right. So how are they introduced then to these games?
So, it's easy enough. Anybody who has a smartphone and has the ability to create an email account or there's so many different online banking services, your PayPals, your Cash Apps, your Venmos, all of that. If you add one of those to,
I never thought about that.
You add one of those to your email address, or just download that app, you can make up an account. Anyone can make up an account.
You can have a Venmo account, not have it tied to a bank account, and still have finances run through it.
Exactly.
I never thought about that.
It's so easy now. In the state of Nebraska, for example, we shut down a lot of the check cashing places here. You can do the same thing online just as easily, in fact easier, and have that money within a few minutes in your account. So it's not stopping anybody, whether they're adults or children. How easy is it for a child to get their mom or dad's email account and do something on there, or find the account that their parents might have, on one of these sites too, and be able to do it that way. Otherwise, there's obviously illegal options out there as well too, and I know from experience that there's bookies inside of high schools. There's bookies in fraternities and sororities in the Greek system at universities. You cannot get away from it. That's why I try to tell people it's not about getting away from it. It's not trying to isolate from it. It's trying to learn how to cope with what's around us, not to let it trigger us, and to work within safe and legal limits.
What are some signs that parents should look for if they kind of suspect maybe there's gambling going on that's destructive?
Listen for lingo. If they start talking about lines and talking about overs and unders and talking about prop bets and just talking about gambling lingo, because it has its own lingo. Even casino gambling has its own lingo. So that's a big place right there. Just talking about money in general, whether they have money and are showing that they have money, or that they're desperate to get more money, whether they're trying to pick up more hours at work and not really talking about why they're wanting to do that, whether they're borrowing money from friends or family. They're just talking more about money. That's a huge piece that we notice, is that when people start worrying more about their financial situation, there's probably a reason behind that. So that's a big key right there. Just talking to your kids about this. I'd say that with anything, is that I have a teenage daughter myself, so just having that line of communication open about mental health, about addiction, about their personal lives, about the people they have in their lives, just opening those lines of communication and including gambling in as part of that conversation. And I think there's not enough parents out there who are doing that these days.
And the services that you talked about in the previous segment, are those also available for youth as well?
Absolutely, yes. So anybody who's struggling, or their loved ones. So if it's a family member, I've talked in a lot of classrooms where I've run into children who are like, yeah, I think my mom or dad or my brother has a problem. So I tell them they can go that route too, but the same goes the other way. So if a parent is concerned about a child, or somebody younger, a minor that has a problem, they can reach out as well the same way, and we can find them proper services.
All right, well, that's really good. Well, we're going to take our final break here, and when we return, Mike is going to share with us some key questions that you can ask yourself or of your loved ones that will help you help them figure out if they've got a problem with gambling. Plus, we'll ask him the multiplier question as well. I'm excited for that answer. You're listening to One Shot, One Life on Lincoln's #1 news and talk station, 1499.3 KLIN.
One Shot, One Life is presented by Lincoln Coin and Bullion, where we respect our clients' privacy. We discourage walk-ins to minimize customer overlap and fully encourage all customers to call us to schedule an appointment. We operate by appointment only to offer our customers a discreet and confidential transaction. You're listening to 1499.3 KLIN. This is One Shot, One Life on 1499.3 KLIN.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today on One Shot, One Life. We absolutely love having you with us. I'm your host, Doug Fitzgerald. We want to thank our title sponsor, Lincoln Coin and Bullion. Listen close. This is not financial advice, but I just want to share something with you. We've got a lot of stuff going on in our economy right now, and gold and silver are the only real money. It's just the way it is. And we're starting to see banks being closed down or being bought out, bank runs. It's just a piece of paper that people put trust in. Gold and silver have always retained their value for thousands of years. That's why I love Lincoln Coin and Bullion. Pat, Courtney, Katie, and Aaron have been my trusted precious metals team for over 10 years now. As a matter of fact, I visit them on a regular basis, and I want to encourage you to do the same. If you don't know much about gold and silver, they're there to educate you. They only accept people by appointment because they want to give you their full attention. And I highly recommend that you go in there and just talk to them. Their phone number is 402-327-2853. That's 402-327-2853. And if you simply want to get more information, you can go to the website at lincolncoinandbullion.com and just find out what they have to offer. They would be happy to talk to you. And if you go in, as always, like with any of our sponsors, we would love for you to tell them that you heard about it on One Shot, One Life. Well, what a powerful show we've had today. Mike Chandra from the Choices Treatment Center here in Lincoln has been sharing with us some very valuable information and insight into problem gambling. Now, Mike, problem gambling is a bigger problem, throughout the U.S. each year. Specifically, it's becoming more and more legal in the states around the country. We were talking a couple breaks ago about just that nearly all but I think 7 states have legalized gambling, or at least on the law books to pass it. How prevalent is it becoming, and what kind of problem do you see that having in regards to hurting people that have issues with gambling?
Yeah, well, we're in unprecedented times with this. I mean, it wasn't that long ago where you could only legally gamble in Las Vegas and Atlantic City, and we didn't obviously have the internet infiltration as well, too, as far as gambling goes. Now, at this, I think I just read something the other day that over half of the American population has readily accessible is readily available, gambling is readily available to them. So that's a huge number. So obviously problems are going to occur when more people are available, have that availability. And that doesn't even go into account the fact that you can do it on your phone and everything else. And as these states, like I mentioned before, as each state it's kind of the Wild Wild West in a way, because each state controls their own gambling activity, but they also control the amount of treatment resources that are available, the amount of money that goes into it, the amount of education and outreach that's out there for it. So at this point, there's just so many opportunities to be able to get into problems and not be able to know how to get out of them.
Yeah. Well, and you're fighting to, and working on getting nationalized, resources available to help people across the state lines, so that because it's not, like you said, it's so independent. And you said earlier too that nearly every state, but maybe 1 or 2, will probably have legalized gambling.
Yeah, it's on the books in a lot of states right now, at least up for debate within legislatures, within government. So it's at a point where it's probably going to be 47, 48, 49 states eventually will have some form of gambling. And I tell people you're not going to get away from it. There's no way of getting away from it. It's just a matter of understanding it and knowing your limits.
Okay, so let's dig into that a little bit more. If somebody thinks maybe themselves, maybe they have a problem with gambling, or a loved one does, there's a questionnaire that you've talked about called the BBGS. Let's talk about that questionnaire and how it can help people identify if they've got a problem.
Yeah, there's a couple great screenings out there that we like to use. And that first one is that BBGS, that Brief Biosocial Gambling Screen. Anybody can Google that or just find it. Just type in BBGS gambling online. You can find that easy enough. There's 3 questions to that one, so it's very good as far as being short and gets to the point. And these are all based off of the past 12 months. So During the past 12 months, have you become restless, irritable, or anxious when trying to stop or cut down on gambling? During the past 12 months, have you tried to keep your family or friends from knowing how much you gambled? Or during the past 12 months, did you have such financial trouble as a result of your gambling that you had to get help with living expenses from family, friends, or welfare? That third question, even, I take that a little bit further, because if you're using a credit card or getting loans or anything like that, you're not necessarily having to borrow from somebody else that you know, but you're borrowing still.
Right.
Any debt is essentially coming from borrowing. So that one, I kind of add that into it as well too. Basically, it comes down to how is it affecting you emotionally, how is it affecting you socially, and how is it affecting you financially.
If you, if one of our listeners or a loved one really is struggling, they know they're struggling, and they really want some added help or protection, there is also a resource or tool that literally can keep you out of certain gambling institutions. What is that?
So it's called voluntary self-exclusion, and we have it in the state of Nebraska. It was something that I helped work with the Nebraska Racing and Gaming Commission to develop for the state of Nebraska, for the casinos in the state of Nebraska. Currently, there's a temporary facilities open here in Lincoln and also in Grand Island, with one opening in Columbus soon. But there's going to be more throughout the state in the coming years. So before those open, we wanted to have what is called voluntary self-exclusion. That's a form that you can fill out. You can come into Choices and fill that out if it's something that you're struggling with. And it bans you, essentially. It's just a ban from any casino properties in the state. And what that allows, then if you do go through that process, you have to let us make a copy of your ID. We take a picture of you. We send that over to the Racing and Gaming Commission. From there, that gets put into the databases at these different casinos. And from there, if you do happen to go on their property, they obviously will kick you out. And if you get in, you will have to forfeit any winnings you get, and there's the opportunity of even receiving trespassing charges if you're caught inside. So it's a very serious thing, but it's a great deterrent for those who are struggling.
Yeah, you can self-police yourself in
absolutely.
that, and you help do that. That's impressive.
That's something that we pride ourselves on at Choices, is offering that service to anybody who needs it.
Is that happening in other states as well?
Yeah, so in Iowa, I know for a fact that they have it. Most states that have casino gambling do have that availability to do it. Not all of them do, but it's something, no matter what state you're in, is something to reach out and try to find out if that's offered.
Well,
good job to get that. Sorry, Doug. Good job getting that in place before they even started, because for anybody else that lives outside of Nebraska, we just legalized gambling in the state. So you got in front of that. That's great.
I have to give all the support and props to the Nebraska Racing and Gaming Commission. They're great people over there, and they understand the problems that can come from problem gambling, so they've been great to work with. I'm very blessed that I have the support of all the stakeholders here in the state of Nebraska, whether it's the casinos, lottery, Keno, all the different stakeholders from a city standpoint, a state standpoint. They all understand that this is going to be a problem, and they're willing to work with trying to find the best solutions.
That's awesome.
Well, on average, it's shown that 90% of people can gamble responsibly, and you've got some information regarding that. How can people identify, and what are some tips you can give people to gamble responsibly?
I would say probably the best thing is just those limits, starting out with limits. So understanding that the best thing you can do is have a limit on time and a limit on money. People think of the money as the big thing, is what causes the problems with gambling. And it is, but also the time and energy that you're putting into it. So say you are going to a casino, put a time limit on it. I'm going to be there 1 hour. I'm going to be there 2 hours. That's a great way to start. Leave those cards out in the car. Leave them at home, Make sure you're not bringing in your debit card or your credit card. If you're going to go in with a certain amount of money, take that amount of money in and don't use more than that allotted amount. Make sure that you're honest with what you're doing. Make sure that people can hold you accountable. Hey, I'm going to the casino today. Either do you want to come with me, or do you want to... or I'm taking in $200 or taking in $50 or whatever it might be, the amount of money. Hold me to that and make sure that I am. And in life, no matter what we're doing, having some accountability partners is something that we always need.
Success partners, that's what we call them in my book.
Exactly.
That's what it is. It's to help us live the best life possible.
I know I need them in various aspects of my life, professionally, academically, financially, everything in my life. I need those success partners, and this is no different here as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Isn't that good?
Yeah,
that's really good.
Love that.
All right, I want to ask you the multiplier question.
Yes.
All right, because we ask all of our experts that come in this final question, and this goes back to the whole thought of if you knew then what you know now. What is one thing that you wish you would have known earlier in life that would have made a greater impact on you and those around you?
I wish I would have known that the ability and that the feelings I get from service and the things I do to help others, I wish I would have known that that feeling feels greater than the feeling of addiction.
Oh.
That's amazing.
The dopamine hits that I used to get from, obviously, from gambling and the other negative things I did in my life, the dopamine hits now that I get from doing stuff like this, from educating others, from even holding the door for someone, as they're walking in somewhere. Those feelings of dopamine that I get from doing that are much greater than anything I ever felt in the past, and I can go to bed at night now and sleep a full night's sleep knowing that I've done something to help others.
Over the past couple of years, what are you most proud of?
Just number one, just my recovery in general. Because of my recovery, I'm able to impact so many other people, whether it's my own person, whether it's my own family, whether it's my friends and people that I've known and those relationships that I've been able to rebuild. But from there, just the education piece of it, there's not like one particular moment that I can say, but just the overall fact that I'm giving back to community now, and that's it's not about me. None of this is about me. There's another book out there. It's called The Go-Giver that I've read repeatedly.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
And that is how I live my life now, and everything that I've accomplished, it's not about me. It's about what I can do to help others. And whatever happens, I kind of let God control the rest of it from there.
That's what it's about.
That's amazing. I love that.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming in, being transparent, and just giving us some really good information. We really appreciate it.
And thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
Absolutely. Well, if you'd like to listen to the podcast of this show or previous shows, you can find them at klin.com and on all podcast platforms. Simply search One Shot, all one word, One Life, all one word on your favorite podcast service, and then you can catch the video playback on Facebook as well. Well, again, we want to thank today's guest, Mike Chandra. Special thanks to my producers, Johnny and Josh. We appreciate that. And until next time, take full advantage of your amazing one life and make every single day count. We'll see you next week.
One shot, one life.
Thank you for listening to the One Shot, One Life show. Visit OneShotOneLife.com to get a free download of our theme song. While you're there, learn how to connect with Doug on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Go there now, OneShotOneLife.com, and listen every Saturday morning at 11, right here on 1499.3 KLIN.
One life.